If your videos are getting views, likes, shares, and comments, but they aren't generating new customers for your business, in this video, I'm going to help you uncover the thing that most people don't bother with, which is all about building the system. Right now, most businesses that I see aren't necessarily bad at creating videos. It's more than likely that they are just creating content that gets attention with no clear path to conversion, which for you means that you could be leaving hundreds of potential customers on the table. So over the next hour or so, however long this video is, I'm going to teach you the exact system that I've used for myself to generate millions of pounds of revenue, over 550 clients, and work with some of the biggest brands in the world over the last 10 years so that you can do exactly the same. It sounds like a very fluffy intro, so just stick with it. Just stick with it. What you are about to watch is a live stream that I hosted within my video community, the Content Club. So get your pen and paper at the ready, sit back, grab a coffee, and let's dive in. So let's start with the big myth when it comes to content creation, and that is that creating more content equals more clients. I can confidently say from experience that that is not the case, okay? What tends to happen when people create more content is they get a lot more likes, they get a lot more reposts and shares and followers. And whilst that is great for a bit of an ego boost and hey, look at me, I'm creating all this successful content, it isn't converting into cash. Now, essentially what this does is it creates influence, but we're not influencers. We are small business owners. We're here to convert customers from our product or our service, or to build our personal brands and those sorts of things, build reputation, etc. But actually, what we're after is converting that influence or that attention into leads, into clients, and into cash in the bank. Now, chances are you are probably already getting some degree of activity from the content that you're posting, but you're not converting. Essentially, that's what this whole next 45, 50 minutes is about. It's about turning that attention into leads for your business, okay? Now, most creators currently, this is a very broad pinch of salt statement, focus on visibility, things like likes, shares, comments, followers, subscribers, and those sorts of things, but nothing to do with conversion. They might be trying to convert customers, but the way that they're approaching their content is much more focused on the vanity metrics, the ego boost, the dopamine high, as opposed to what tends to be a bit more of the unsexy side, actually converting that attention into cash. Now, they look great online, but under the surface, it tends to be a lot of smoke and mirrors. And from a lot of the people that I've spoke to over the last couple of years, it's usually the ones that have the biggest personal brands or get the most attention on social media that are ones that tend to struggle the most when it comes to getting leads, and they tend to claw at cash in the bank when they can get it. So whilst they look great from an optics standpoint online, don't believe it all the time. Some may be the opposite of that, but from my experience, they tend to be the ones that are really struggling because they focused on building virality as opposed to sanity and getting cash in the bank, okay? Now, what happens is when you're creating content that isn't converting, all of that hard work, all that time, energy, and effort goes into the bin. You've wasted precious ideas for, content goldmine ideas that you might be sitting on that now are out there and haven't converted. You might be wasting a lot of time, which is an incredibly valuable resource, and possibly hard-earned cash, especially if you're paying for freelancers, or maybe you've got a very expensive hourly rate. If you have, absolutely go you, props to you, to be able to make that content in the first place. And these are all very incredibly valuable resources that you don't want to lose. Okay, so what I'm going to do very quickly is just cover the very few kind of broad common mistakes that people tend to make that causes content to not convert. And these are very broad, sort of just pick of the luck kind of approaches, okay? So the first is that the content that you're creating doesn't really give the viewer anything to take action on. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of wasted energy in terms of people not being able to click on a next step. That could be a link to a website, that could be a form to fill out, that could be a free lead magnet or a resource that people can download that you can strip their information from. There isn't anything there that they can click on to go to a next step, usually your call to action. The second is messy messaging. It might be that it's a bit more all over the place. There's too many people that you're talking to. The lingo that you're using, people don't understand. Maybe it's too sort of interconnected and sort of inside jokey kind of culture. Maybe it's too fancy. And the third is that you're talking to the wrong audience. Potentially you are making content around multiple services. Maybe you're targeting polar opposite people. That creates confusion. That makes it very unrelatable and very hard to connect with. And ultimately, all of that causes conflict when it comes to converting them as a customer. Again, these are three very broad mistakes. But what I'm going to do now is dive into a handful of more specific ones. Now, these tend to be five that are the most common, so I'm diving into them, in a bit more sort of specificity, okay? So the first is giving too much value. I've coined this. I don't know if it's me. I'm I'm going to say that it was me, but I don't know if it was, called the education trap. Essentially, I sort of talk about this quite a lot in the club, but it's where you're giving away too much value, but you're never asking for the sale. Okay, this is a trap that a lot of people get stuck into, giving top tips, sharing their advice, giving free resources, sharing tools and knowledge and a wealth of experience, but they're never giving people the opportunity or the action to take that next step and actually pay cash to learn something of greater value or become a paying customer. Okay. Educating is really important, but it's all about balance when it comes to content, okay? And we're going to touch on that a little bit later. The second is weak calls to action. I kind of touched on this at the start a little bit, but spending hours creating brilliant posts and getting lots of engagement, views and likes and those sorts of things, that's great. And then I sometimes see calls to action saying things like DM me for a chat. That's the worst sort of situation you can put yourself in, leveraging all this amazing attention through a very hard-earned, hard-worked-on piece of content to say, DM me for a chat. People don't want to chat, especially people who are in pain or have a massive problem that they want fixing. They want that problem or pain solved as fast as possible, and they're happy to pay a premium to have that done by a professional. They don't want to have a conversation, okay? At least most don't. Maybe some do, but most don't. Now, common ones that I tend to see from people are DM me, or let's start the conversation, or the worst one, thoughts. In my opinion, these are lazy calls to action. They haven't had any thought put into them. They are there to try and spark conversation, but again, it's all just down for vanity influence and actually not getting people to take action into that next step. Great calls to action, on the other hand, are things like click here to get a free X, or book a 20-minute consultation with me using the link below, or do agree or disagree, the first 10 comments get free X from me for support. Essentially, you're trying to encourage and evoke action and giving people something back for their time that they're investing into actually engaging with your post. The third, is optimization. Now, we live in the time where your landing page, your site, your newsletter, your content is essentially your shop window. You know, we've gone from the metaphorical high street physically being present, and now we're taking things online. I've even seen people have not have websites and still convert a lot of people just because their landing page or their profile on LinkedIn, for example, or YouTube is so well optimized and tells such a good story that it can actually convert customers. So your profile is your shop window. We're going to be diving into this a little bit later in terms of profile optimization, site optimization, newsletter optimization, everything optimization. But essentially what you need to do here is add a lot of clarity, okay? All I see too often, especially on people's profiles in their descriptions, are things like, I'm a founder, I'm a TEDx speaker, I'm an Amazon bestseller, I'm an author. That's great, but I want to know what you sell, how you can solve my problem, how you can get me out this tremendous pain that I'm in that I'm willing to pay a premium for, not that you're a TEDx speaker and everything in between. Now, good sales and good optimization position in a couple of different ways. You could say something like, I help X achieve Y with Z on your bio, for instance, to then have a very good featured section on LinkedIn with lots of high value, maybe singular links that people can click onto, lead magnets, testimonials from customers, recent work, the lot. Again, we're going to touch on this a little bit later. The fourth is down to focusing on vanity metrics. Big focus on impressions on LinkedIn. At the moment, there's a huge one. People are really focusing on views and impressions and those sorts of things. It's all arbitrary. It's all vanity. It doesn't really mean anything. It makes you feel good and it makes you have a really nice, great big dopamine high, but it isn't going to convert people, okay? This is what I coin as the engagement trap. Again, it might be a term that already exists, so that's kind of what I call it. Now, what you need to be doing in this scenario is building a content system that doesn't focus on vanity, but actually focuses on sanity. Sanity, getting real customers, lead generation, qualified conversations, and getting cash in the bank, okay? So stop comparing yourself to others. Stop trying to beat your previous post in terms of views and likes and shares and new followers, and start to build a system that generates clicks, clients, and cash. Okay, clicks, clients, cash. That was random. I didn't have that written down. Nice little bit of alliteration. Number 5, and the final one for this list, is lacking systems. Okay, now a system is essentially the process of managing, analyzing, and refining your content marketing at every step of that journey, all the way from awareness, nurture, all the way down to conversion. Now, what most people will do is randomly think of an idea, they'll post it onto the internet, and if it hasn't gone viral, they'll be super upset, they'll be disheartened, and chances are they'll probably give up altogether because they haven't gone viral in a week. I see this a lot happen. Now, content is 50% a creative process and 50% a science. In the scientific part, that's where understanding data and metrics and analytics and performance really comes into play. And again, we're going to be diving into that a little bit later on. Okay, so systems are really important. So what I'm going to do over the next, I'd say 40 minutes or so now, is getting you out of that education trap. I'm going to help strengthen your calls to action. I'm going to help to optimize your profile using a nice little framework. I'm going to help you to build a system that doesn't focus on vanity and instead focuses on sanity, cash in the bank. And hopefully by the end of this, you're going to have a bit of a system that works in terms of creating content on a regular basis that helps you to generate leads for your business, get cash in the bank, and ultimately live the life that you want. Okay? So any questions? Well, I can't even ask questions because the chat's not working today, but that's absolutely fine. What I'm going to do is have a quick drink and then we'll get into the next section, okay? So everyone's still with me, which is good. Cool. So this system is, I guess, kind of broken down into a few things, this sort of masterclass, sorry. So the first is we're going to go through the 4C formula, which is a conversion formula. The second is we're going to start working on the system. The third part is we're going to start to build a bit of a step-by-step process and workflow, and then we'll dive into a Q&A if I can figure out how this Q&A works at the end. For some reason, again, it's not working today, so it might be that we skip that part. And again, if you're watching the recordings and rewinds, you just drop a comment or a question down in the comments, and I'd be more than happy to help, okay? Let me introduce you guys to the 4C formula. Essentially, the 4C formula is a conversion framework for your content. I've found that it helps to almost structure, script, plan, write, regardless of whether that's a newsletter that you're doing or a LinkedIn post or an Instagram video script, whatever it will be. I find that it helps you to format and structure content that actually takes people on a bit more of a journey that then makes that conversion part at the end or that call to action just that little bit more impactful, okay? And it's broken down to 4 different stages. The first is capture. That's the hook. This is where you're going to grab people's attention, literally a line or two of information that just gets people to stop the scroll, stop the thumb, and actually pay attention to you. The second is the stage where you start to input a bit of credibility and a bit of authority. So why should they listen to you? Adding in a bit of your expertise within your niche. The third part is clarity. So what's the solution? How does that actually help solve your viewer's problem in terms of content? And then lastly, once you've gone through all of that journey and all that story, which we can dive into in a second, is the call to action. So the part that actually people now know who you are, have a bit of credibility backed up, have a bit of clarity in terms of what they need to do. They now need that action. And that's where your CTA comes in, which is what is the next thing that they need to do to then take action to go and progress on that journey, whether that's going from your site to a newsletter to a call to a lead, whatever it is, whatever your sales process is, it helps them to convert into that next stage. Now, what I just want to caveat this with a little bit is this is not a content strategy. This is a framework for how you structure, plan, and essentially draft content. Okay, so you can use this within any strategy, with any form of content that you want. I tend to find that it works better within promotional content because by then people know who you are, they trust you a little bit, and you can kind of take them on that promotional journey, I guess. But you can use it pretty much wherever you want to. It's a framework that I've found works really well. There are, yes, thousands of other frameworks. I'm sure lots of people will teach you them online, but this is just the one that I've found works really well for me, that I've used for a long time, many, many years. And if you get a little bit stuck when you're writing content, this could be a really nice way just to start out formatting and structuring stuff, okay? So I'm going to break each stage down just so you guys have got all the information, and we can kind of go from there. So the first is capture. This is, again, all about attention. So think when you're scrolling through the feed and you stop on a piece of content, that first, I'd say 10 to 15 seconds of those first, that single line or second line is really what stops you. This is what capture is all about when you structure your content. So starting with a bold statement, a surprising fact, or directing a very painful problem straight away is a really great way to get people to stop in their tracks. Again, these are just a few examples out of potentially thousands that you can use. I'm just trying to give you some something to take tangibly, I guess. So things like most small business owners are making this huge mistake with their X. Are you? Makes you a little bit inquisitive. It makes you a little bit like, oh, I want to find out what's going on. Again, you can kind of break these down for the rest of them as well. X is everywhere, and you're probably seeing it too. It makes you inquisitive. You want to find out more information, so you're likely going to stop. And at that point, you've captured their attention on your content, okay? That then moves down to the second part, which is credibility building. This is all around establishing your authority, positioning you as an expert in your niche, and you can do that through sharing experience, giving a bit of insight, or using this as an opportunity to actually relate to your customer or your ICP, or your ideal customer persona, sorry. So the whole goal here is positioning you as an authority. They've you've got their attention straight away. They're on the video, they're scrolling down the newsletter, whatever it is, you've got their attention. Now you need to build some credibility. Now you could do this in a couple of different ways. Again, thousands of examples, but these are just 3 that I found that I like personally. I've helped over X businesses fix this and get real results. Here's how. So again, you're adding a bit of credibility into how many businesses you've worked with and how many you've helped. Again, just going down to the bottom, I always struggled with X. Now, I don't even think about it. Great bit of credibility building. You're an authority in your space. You clearly know what you're doing. You've got out of this trap. Then you go on to helping people solve that for themselves, okay? So now you've gained authority. So you captured attention first. You've gained authority now. Now it's about adding clarity to what people need to do next on their journey, okay? This is all about giving value. I know that sounds really broad and very arbitrary, but you've got to explain the actions that your audience now need to take to solve their problem, either by themselves or give them general broad advice in terms of how you can help them as well, in terms of what you do with clients and those sorts of things. So a couple of examples. Again, instead of the wrong approach, do the right approach. It works because. So you're giving people backstory, okay? If I had to start from day one, here's everything that I do step by step. Again, you're talking from experience. You're giving people a guideline or a framework to use for their own stuff. Here are X ways to go from problem to goal. Again, building credibility, building clarity, giving people confidence to know what they need to do next. Kind of similar, I guess, to how these masterclasses are laid out. I'm giving you guys all the information. Granted, it's much more deep dive. And again, this is a very heavy one in terms of masterclasses information, but you get the idea here. The goal of this section of your content is to deliver the solution to their problem. And then lastly, we end up with a call to action, which is all about telling your audience exactly what they need to do next. What step do they need to take to go from where they are now, which is their problem, using this value that you've just given them to then becoming a customer or getting onto your wait list or booking a free consultation, whatever it is, what do they need to do next, okay? So it might be things like, again, plenty of examples here. These are just 3 that I found for myself. If you're done guessing and want X that works, I'm hosting a free X sign up here, getting people to sign up. Drop a comment saying X and I'll send you a free lead magnet to get started. I use this one quite a lot for the club. It works really, really well, especially if you've got a good lead magnet. And then finally, if you want in, join the waitlist and you'll be sent all the information. It pretty much candidly and very bluntly tells people what they need to do. It isn't overcomplicated in terms of you've got to go here, you've got to click this, and you've got to sign up here, and then you've got to wait a day to get information. It's just one step, do this to get this, and that's it, okay? Again, this whole stage is around encouraging action. Hopefully I haven't gone too fast there, but again, this will be in the recordings and rewinds. You can flick through that, you can write notes as you go, and I'll break it down below anyway. What this does in terms of content framework is it hooks people straight away, so it stops the thumb, it stops the scroll, gets people interested. It then builds trust before you start to sell a product or sell the solution, so it positions you as an expert. Then it gives people the value, the insights, the solution to what they need to do to then solve their problem. And lastly, once you've gone through that whole journey with them, which again could be a very quick short form video, it could be the way that you format your website, for example, it could be a newsletter, it could be a podcast, whatever format of content it is, you are then in a position to tell them what to do next. You've got authority, you've got reputation, you've got a bit of legacy there behind you. Now people are at the edge of their seat going, I love this, this is exactly what I need, what do I need to do? That's your opportunity to convert them with a nice call to action to take them to that next step. That is the framework, okay? What I'm going to do now is show you, let me just check everyone's still here, everyone's cool, they are fine. What we now need to do is start to introduce that into, what we need to do now is structure that into your social content. So here's how you can use the 4C framework within a variety of different types of content. We're going to be covering short form, email, newsletter, and potentially I think it was LinkedIn as well we covered as well, or was it, it was written. So short form, written, and then email and newsletter, okay? Let me just grab that one up, cool. So going through capture credibility, clarity, call to action, again, the 4C framework here. For short form content, your capture stage could be around grabbing attention in the first 3 seconds to reel people in very quickly with a problem, a fact, or relatable scenario. That then leads into a bit of credibility in terms of a bit of social proof to position you as the expert. Again, experience, that could be results, that could be a relatable story. Then you move on to clarity, so actually delivering on the core solution that you offer in about 30 to 90 seconds. That's an arbitrary number. Short form content, it seems to be getting longer and longer and longer as the years go on at the moment. I've just seen short form content that's like 5 or 6 minutes now, which is kind of crazy, to help solve their solution. And then the call to action there could be to direct viewers to actually engage in a way that makes them want to take action. That could be through a comment that you spark in the conversations. That could be a personal DM. That could be a link that you leave in your bio or a lead magnet that people can download again. A few optimization tips for short form as well. Use jump cuts. Really important just to structure that content and make sure that the pace is super fast and very high energy. Keep your videos between 30 to 90 seconds if it is short form. Film them portrait as well. I see so many people filming short form content in landscape. Optimize it for the platform that you're posting to. It takes up more space on your feed. And use multiple locations as well when you are filming. So rather than just doing a talking head video, try and change the shots up and vary the footage, because that's going to add much more creative variety. That's how I would use the 4C framework within short form content. Then we've got written content. So same thing again, I'm going to go for the 4C formula. Capture it with a single line statement that stops the scroll, and you could also have a secondary hook there. So you have your first hook to grab attention, that might be your headline. Then you have a sub header or a sub headline that just sort of reinforces your first one, again to capture attention. Then share a bit of a quick insight or statistic or a personal experience story to tap into emotion. Add a bit of clarity. So again, you're going through that sort of what's the solution there, what's the problem that needs to be solved, and how do you do that? So provide a bit of a laid out framework as well, step-by-step breakdown or an insight that helps you to solve that problem. And then call to action would be to encourage interactions or engagement by asking questions. Maybe you want people to send you back an email again, or maybe there's a comment section in your written post that you can spark that kind of community vibe there through comments. Optimization for written posts would be things like keep your hook to 1 to 2 lines just for readability. It makes it nice, short and sweet. Use bold or italic text. I see this a lot on LinkedIn. They've now integrated the bold feature that you can do. Or for some social platforms that don't have formatting options, you can just use the websites like, I think it's text-to-italic.com or something like that. Just type it into Google and they'll come up, and then you can copy it, import it into your posts. And avoid unnecessary fluff. I'm a big person for doing this because I waffle a lot. But especially when it comes to this sort of content and you want to get this 4C formula out the way, just get in there fast, get out fast, and just deliver value as quickly as you possibly can, okay? The beauty with written posts is that you do have a bit more time, okay? So whether it's a story, it's not like a short form video where you've got to really have, grab attention straight away and fill people with dopamine and high energy. Written is a much slower form of content, but you can really dive in deep. So again, use this with a pinch of salt. And then lastly, it comes to emails and newsletter content. Now, I'm a big advocate for newsletters. I think every single person should have one if you have something to say or things to teach people. I just think they're a beautiful thing. You own your own land with that sort of content as well. You know, it's not built on a social platform. It's built on your own email list, which is really important. But I'm going to break down the 4C formula for emails as well. So a compelling subject line, super, super, super important that people want to open it. Again, and maybe a sub-headline as well. Grabs attention. It just sets the scene and sets the stage for what people are about to read. Credibility, so provide a really short, very relatable story or example that just backs up your message there as well in terms of what the post is going to be about. Clarity in terms of solving the problem, again highlighting singular lessons or actions or insights that help to simplify their problems with actionable steps. And then calls to action include a very low friction call to action that is simple and easy for your viewer to act on right away. I know I'm pretty much reading this word for word, but what I'm trying to do here is just give you guys a bit of context in terms of how you can use this 4C formula to structure and I guess sort of framework your content. Again, whether it's scripts, whether it's newsletters, or whether it's short form videos, written posts, you can use this formula to really structure a very clear narrative that takes people through attention, credibility building, clarity, and actually getting sort of taking action at the bottom through your content. Again, the formula works pretty much regardless of what type of content it is. Optimization tips, use very short, punchy sentences to maintain engagement. Obviously, naturally very important. Personalized newsletters as well. Yes, you can run them through ChatGPT, and I think that is important just to finesse the language of things ever so slightly to make them more prompt or finessed. But I think you should input that original post and just say, how would you tweak this, as opposed to, I've got an idea for a newsletter, can you write it? You want to interject your personality to some degree so it feels more conversational and more chatty. And again, inject humor, a bit of candidness, which I'm a massive fan of, especially here in the UK. We quite like that very dry, blunt humor, and uniqueness where possible. That's going to help you to stand out and differentiate yourself from every single other person that's also creating newsletter content, okay? What I now want to really, really promptly say is that this is all really good to learn how to use this formula. And it's really powerful when you can kind of get to grips with it. Yes, it will take a bit of time, but it's incredibly useless if you don't have a system to regularly implement it. Okay, and what I mean by that is you can have this formula in your head, but as you know, if you're just creating one post a month, it's probably not going to work. I'm going to touch on that a little bit as well, but you need a system where you can implement this framework into then creating content that converts people. Okay, I did say, and I did warn you that this was a bit of a heavy one. Okay, we've just scratched the surface. Or should I say, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Oh, look at that transition. Just when it comes to creating content that converts. It is one very small framework out of potentially hundreds and thousands of other frameworks from other creators or other influencers, whatever it is that they use to create their own content. I've just found this one works for me, and it gives you a really nice starting point. If you're really confused on where to start in terms of how to structure generally any content, this will really help. Okay. Now, what I'm going to say is, if you do have any questions, again, I can't ask that. I've got a note here to ask questions, but the chat, for some reason, seems to be broken today. So I can't see if you guys exist or whatnot here. I know that it is live, which is really weird, but for some reason I can't get any comments, which is strange. I can see when you raise your hand, which is great. I just can't see when you comment. So that's going to really that's going to kill a few areas of this, but that's fine. We'll figure it out as we go. So what I want to do now in the next part of this is I want to teach you the system. Okay, you've got a formula that you can use to framework and format your content, but what you really need now to actually create content that converts into cash is a system. I'm not going to teach you how to physically create the content in terms of the aesthetics. That's what the club's for. That's what the quality controller's for in terms of feedback. The name might change in the future. Who knows? There's going to be tons of resources in the club that are going to be able to teach you how to physically, aesthetically create and produce content. This masterclass is much more of a deep dive, a mild dive, deep dive into the systems and the processes and the workflows that you can kind of integrate into your life to then create regular content. Okay, waffling. Let's move on. If you're still finding this valuable, click the links in the description below. Again, you've got some free things, some paid things, and the opportunity to join and become a member of the Content Club, where you can get access to stuff just like this, including over 250 hours of already pre-recorded training and workshops to help you create better videos that get customers for your business. Link will be in the description below. See you there. I'm going to dive into what I've coined. There's 3 things I've coined now. The conversion content system. All right, sounds very fancy. It's not, but it's broken down into a couple of different things that I'll dive into. What I'm going to teach you now is how to structure, then how to optimize, and then how to execute content that converts. Now, by implementing this system that I'm about to teach you, again, take it with a pinch of salt and just remember that it's going to take time to do this, okay? I've been making content for about 10 years, professionally probably 6 or 7, right? It takes time. But commit to the process and you will have a very fruitful career. I can guarantee you that, okay? What you'll do if you start to implement this is you'll start to find that your content's actually converting into clients. It is growing your business. And ultimately, it's helping you build and achieve the life that you want to live, all right? Whether that's 4 holidays a year, whatever it is, or a bit more stress-free cash in the bank, with safety net, whatever it is, it's going to help you build that, okay? I know it because I've done it from experience and it works, all right? I'm only teaching stuff that I know actually works in real life, okay? Now, again, it's going to take you a lot of time. It's going to take you a lot of energy. It is going to take a lot of hours to put this together. But I'm going to walk you through it step by step. And hopefully, touch wood, I'm going to make it a little bit simpler for you guys. Okay. So most small business owners do not have a system. I would usually say put a yes in the chat or a thumbs up in the chat if you do or if you don't, but I can't see that. So I'm going to guess that you don't have a system in terms of content. I'm going to guess you're starting out very fresh, you've got ideas, and you generally know how to film stuff on your phone and whatnot, but you don't have an actual system, okay? That's going to cause a couple of problems. Now, these problems stack on each other. So if you post content when you feel inspired and you've got this great idea, that's going to lead to sporadic engagement in terms of it's very inconsistent. There's no regularity to it. It's not systemized at all. That's then going to mean that the results that you get or the leads that you get, because of that very inconsistent sporadic engagement, are going to be pretty much null. They're not really going to exist. And that means that you're not getting cash in the bank. You enter this feast and famine cycle that is horrible in the small business world. Again, I know I've been there before. And it comes down to a lack of systems, okay? So I'm going to try and help you fix it. Now, what most people do is when they have that and they've got that idea and they post it online and it doesn't do well, they throw in the towel because it becomes too difficult. Content creation, I've going to say this to the whole masterclass, guys, is difficult, okay? It's incredibly time-consuming, especially video where the barrier to entry for it is absolutely enormous. It's going to take time, but you have to have a test and fail mindset, and over time, the more you do it, the easier it will become. It's going to seem like a lot today. Again, it's a very heavy one. It's going to seem like a lot of information, but stick with me, okay? Because the more you do it, the easier it will be. Just trust me on that, okay? So, if you have got a system and you apply it consistently, you won't burn out and you won't stop, okay? Instead, what you'll be doing is creating a very smooth, very repeatable workflow that makes it easier to create this content. Now, this system, the conversion content system, is broken down into 5 different steps. The first is building your core message. We're going to be talking about pillars and those sorts of things. The second is actually structuring your content. The third is optimizing your profile, so actually sort of setting up your metaphorical shop so that people can walk in and see all your wares and those sorts of things. The fourth is then systemizing that process, so actually creating workflows and almost like optimizing it like a conveyor belt kind of process. And then lastly, once you've done all of that, it's actually about putting it under the microscope and tracking it and improving it and looking at the metrics and the data and getting a real geeky look at what is working and what is not working so that you can refine the whole process. I'm going to break all those down for you now. So what I want you guys to see this as is almost like an assembly line, okay? I would recommend doing one after the other. You wouldn't start at tracking what's working when you haven't implemented this. So what I would say and caveat this with is if you're starting this system now, give it about 3 months, which sounds like a long time. In the bigger picture, it's already, again, I don't want to date this, but it's already the 20th of February, and the last 6 and a bit weeks have absolutely flown by in 2025. Where has the time gone? You will find exactly the same in 3 months' time when you're creating stuff. You'll go, wow, this has gone so quickly. So just stick with it for 3 months and then start to implement things as you go. Each step of this system will make your content stronger and much more effective as it goes down this metaphorical conveyor belt. Okay, so stick with it. So let's actually dive in, all right? Step 1 is to build your core message. Now, I am an advocate of building things called pillars. Other people will call them lenses. Essentially, they're different perspectives and ways that people will interact and consume your content. Now, what I would recommend is when you're starting out, again, if you're just starting with filming content on a phone and you've maybe never made a video before and you're just struggling with ideas, just focus on 1 or 2 different pillars, okay? And these are essentially ways that you want to be seen. It's how you want to build your reputation up. It's how you want to be known. It's what you want to be seen as an expert within in terms of niche. As you start to get more comfortable with the different categories or different pillars or lenses, whatever you want to call them, let's just call them pillars for this one, you can start to add more into your rhythm, okay? But start really small, 1 or 2 different pillars. That's going to be your key focus, key topic that you're going to start to create content around. And as you get into that rhythm, you can start to sort of widen the breadth of pillars that you have. Now, these are a few that I have. I also have a lot more because I'm doing it for a lot longer. But a few key ones that you might want to steal from me are promotion, so talking about the club and those sorts of things. Business, that might be what's happening in the reality of business and career and those sorts of things. Personal stuff, what's happening in my personal life. It might be that I'm getting engaged or married. Hopefully that doesn't happen too often because that would not be good. Education, so it might be teaching people tips and tricks, or a bit of behind the scenes of work and life and what's going on and everything in between. These are nice pillars because they kind of amalgamate me as an individual, that get sort of people can see inside the business and how things work. I'm also helping people to win by educating them. I'm showing them the raw, very authentic side of things through behind the scenes stuff, but I'm also promoting what I do. So I'm also actively converting clients and turning them into customers and those sorts of things. It'll take you a while to think of your own, okay? So I'm saying just use this as a bit of inspiration. For example, one that you could steal today would be more of a personal angle. So I've got a really itchy nose. Personal angle, and this could be broken down into a few different ideas, for example, such as the reality of running a business, just nice personal piece of content. It might be that you are highlighting mistakes that you've made within your business or your life, and you just want to sort of bring that up and talk about it very authentically and very naturally. It might be that you're celebrating goals and milestones. Maybe you've had a great win that you just want to share, and you want people to appreciate and give you a bit of a fist bump on, whatever. This is just a nice area. Again, pillars are really important to keep your content very structured and rhythmic so that in the future you can be known as a particular person that creates this particular style or is in this particular niche. Okay, we'll dive into that in just a second. Now, what pillars are crucial for is converting the right person. Having content pillars allows you to stick to a few different things. The first, it allows you to talk about your core messages regularly. The second is that it actually grows your authority and publicity in terms of the right people. So relatability, what resonates, what actually clicks with the right types of people. And third, over time, you'll get known for that particular message or that particular style of content or that particular niche or area of expertise. That builds trust and that allows you to lead people who are watching your content and engaging with it into clients, okay? What happens when you don't have pillars or you don't have kind of core, I guess, I don't know what the unwaffly word would be, lenses or foundations of content, whatever it is. If you don't have them, what tends to happen is your messaging is really inconsistent. So let's say, for example, you're a bit more of a generalist, right? So maybe let's say that you are a social media agency owner, just picking that out of the wind, and you're talking about animal rights, you're talking about politics, you're talking about personal branding, your new house renovation, how you went skiing in the summer, whatever it is. Creating content in those areas and trying to convert people is going to be really difficult because it fluctuates so regularly. There's no clarity in terms of what you want to be positioned as. For example, you're not being positioned as, the video guy, which is kind of what I've been known for my career, and it'll probably start that for a long time. It might be that you want to position yourself as the accountant consultant or whatever it is. If you're talking about too many different things that are very unrelated, it's going to be really hard to knuckle down and kind of fix you to this person does this and that's why I follow him, okay? Now, if people don't know what you do, they won't keep coming back. They won't follow you, they won't subscribe, and that's really important. Or they won't join your waitlist, or they won't click to your site or jump on your free lead magnet or whatever it is, okay? It doesn't position you as an authority in a particular area, and the chances that you will convert these people that are viewing your content into customers, I would say, is not impossible, but very improbable, okay? So there's probably a very small chance that it might work, but chances are you want a bit more of a repeatable, very confident system that when you create this sort of content, that's going to amalgamate into actual cash in the bank. So please focus on your pillars. That's the first step. The second step is creating balance within all of those areas, okay? Now, I'm going to very quickly just touch on a few slides. We did a masterclass last month, which was all about sort of setting yourself up and building a strategy called the Know, Like, Trust strategy. Essentially, it's all focused on generating awareness, creating educational content, and then creating promotional posts that then convert that attention into customers, essentially. You need to have balance within your content. If you're just posting conversion content all the time, you're not getting new eyes on the brand and you're not actually building rapport and relationships and trust through educating the people that are in your network. You need to have balance. From experience, 2 out of every 5 posts, let's just say, should be focused on getting new attention and getting new eyes on you. 2 out of every 5 posts should be there to add value and support and to help other people win through your value and the expertise, top tips and those sorts of things. And 1 out of every 5 posts, let's just say every Friday, for example, it's a really good opportunity to start to promote stuff and actually mention what you sell and those sorts of things. Again, we're all small business owners. We're not here to just get loads of followers and get loads of likes and loads of comments. That's great if you want to become the next Kim Kardashian and next influencer. I don't personally want that. I'd rather have cash in the bank and new customers and people in the club and those sorts of things. I'm sure you guys are the same. You'd rather have new customers and cash in the bank, and then you can build the life that you want. So it's important to convert, but balancing that is really important. On average, this is really crucial as well, because I know there's a few people in the club that are still yet to post a little bit. So hopefully this will put a bit of fire up your backside, which is really good. It takes between 7 to 13 different touch points to actually convert a customer. So for example, if you are posting 1 video a month or 1 post a month when you can be bothered, or when you've got an idea and you go, oh, that's a cool one, I'm going to put that together for a month's time, it's going to take you about a year to even get your first lead, because it's going to take time, okay? Now, if you're creating a piece of content every week, or maybe multiple pieces of content a week, you are really streamlining the amount of time that it takes for people to go from not knowing you to knowing you, loving you, wanting to be a customer, and that takes between 7 to 13 different posts or touch points. That could be a how-to tutorial that they see first, then they head to your website, and that's a touch point. Maybe they then sign up to your newsletter, and that's the touch point. 7 to 13. I thought that was quite a lot of touch points, but it's probably very true in terms of how you buy stuff yourself. You probably go through that journey as well. And then what I will also then do is, when it comes to balancing this content, is try and find a very repeatable, seamless system, okay? Rather than going, right, what am I posting next week? Just maybe structure it out in terms of, on Mondays, I post a funny skit. On Tuesdays, I post a recap of my newsletter. On Wednesdays, I post a podcast snippet. On Thursdays, I post a nice personal post. And on Fridays, I post a promotional post. Whatever it is, this is your format to kind of dive into. What I would say is I'm not going to dive much further into this. There is a masterclass on this. I will leave it down below. I would recommend watching that really before this anyway. But if you're still here, don't worry, you're here now, so you might as well dive in just to learn more about the know, like, and trust strategy in more detail. Okay, it's going to really help when it comes to creating stuff that actually converts, because you need that balance and you need that equilibrium of different varieties of content. Okay, step 3. This is my favorite one. Actually optimizing landing pages and profiles and sites and formats and everything in between. Now, your profile in 2025, that's going to date this video as well, is essentially your shop window, okay? What I see a lot of is people's profiles or their websites or newsletters, whatever it is. We're going to go for profiles just for the moment. So unoptimized, it's actually insane. They don't have a great banner. They don't have a very clear profile picture. Their short bio is a mismatch of misinformation, and it's all over the place, and it doesn't add clarity at all. Their bio is all over the place. Their featured section on LinkedIn is an absolute mess of 15 different links that people can click, and it's just so messy. What's really important when it comes to content is you've got to drive people to somewhere that's really clear, that essentially tells a story of what you do, what problems you solve, and everything in between, okay? There's plenty of creators that I've seen that don't have websites but are doing really well for themselves just because they've managed to optimize their LinkedIn profile, for example. I'm just going to pick that out the wind because I know a lot of people will be focusing on LinkedIn content, okay? But again, the same could be working for Instagram, get some highlights up. The same could be working for YouTube, get a nice featured video up that tells you about the channel and those sorts of things, a newsletter, welcome email, everything in between, right? You need to optimize this sort of stuff. Now, what I was going to ask, which is going to be really tough now because I can't see the comments, was in smaller businesses, people buy from people in a very non-narcissistic way. People probably join the club initially because they know me, they see my content on social, and they go, this guy's really cool, he's got a lot of value, his members are getting some pretty good results, I hope, fingers crossed, and I'm going to try and test it out for myself. That's probably 95% of the time that's going to be the case. The problem is, when you get bigger and when you start to build brand, that script really flips, okay? Now, I'm going to ask you guys if you know this individual. So this is the current CEO of Nike. I would usually leave 30 seconds for people to go, yeah, I know this person. No, I don't know this person. I'm going to go on the basis that you don't know who this is, because I didn't as well. And I'm a big Nike advocate. I love the mission that they're after. This guy is called Elliot Hill. Now, you don't buy from Nike because you know Elliot. You buy from Nike because of the brand that they've built, the legacy that they're working on, the mission that they're working towards. But you buy from me as a smaller business owner because you know me, you like me, you trust me, you see me as an expert, and you want to be part of what I'm building. So it's a very different way of thinking. And that's why it's really important to optimize your profile or your personal brand or whatever you want to do, your YouTube channel, your newsletter, as opposed to your company pages as a smaller business owner, okay? It might be that you've got a team of 10. Regardless, you've still got to brand yourself, build your own legacy, build land on yourself as an individual, as opposed to your logo and your company, okay? If you're building a brand, it's very different. If you're looking to dominate the world with an e-commerce product, the likes of Nike, it's got to be approached very differently. But all of us here, or the majority, are small business owners, and the way that you approach promoting yourself is slightly different, okay? So you've got to build the foundations and optimize your own profiles, okay? Let me go on. So I've just clicked off this link. So here's how you do it for LinkedIn. Again, you can kind of use the same sort of rules. I know my head's sort of cutting off a little bit of text here, but I'll run you through it. Optimizing for LinkedIn specifically, again, the same rules can apply for Instagram or YouTube or whatever, or your TikTok channel or whatever, okay? So this section here, let me grab my mouse up. I need to do my mouse here, cool. So your banner, which is this bit, it needs to be on brand, super colorful, very bright, and essentially capture what you're all about. Very nice, clear profile photo. I see so many people don't have clear profile photos, which is crazy to me. I think that's insane. But who do you help? What do you do? How can you help people take action very quickly? And also including a very clear call to action. So a good example is that you can have and implement it into your bios today is I help X, that's your client, achieve Y, that's your goal, with Z, that's your solution, okay? So in my case, it might be I help small business owners achieve content mastery with regular content guidance. Something like that. Again, arbitrary thing there. A bad example that I see a lot of is I'm a CEO, founder, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, ex-agency owner, investor, astronaut, whatever, right? Don't put that. It's completely, there's no value that somebody can take from that other than it boosts your ego a little bit and just basically lists all your credentials. People don't care. People want to know what you do, how you help them, and why following you, again, building it on you as opposed to the brand, is going to be valuable for them, okay? The second is your bio. Again, I think YouTube is a really good place for this. LinkedIn is a great place. I know Instagram and TikTok maybe don't have quite the length of bio that you can have in terms of depth and information, but it should be an extension of your banner. It should be an extension of your short bio, essentially going into more detail, telling stories that actually relate to your customers with a bit more descriptive call to action. So in this case, you probably won't be able to see this because it might be a little bit pixelated on the live. But essentially up here, it's all about story, why I started the club. Then it comes down into results from previous clients, so adding a bit of credibility there. Then it's sort of how much it is a month and what you get in terms of value, so actually starting to close people that read this content. And then super clear call to action in terms of next steps. Join the waitlist for the club, wait till the doors open, get in. This information is really important to have in terms of optimization, just because it takes people through the stages of how you created what you created, how much it costs, what results are, how people kind of get in with next steps and those sorts of things. So please do format this. Again, depending on where you're posting, LinkedIn and YouTube offer a really great depth to include more bio. Things like TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, X, I guess, don't really have that sort of level. So they're very restrictive in terms of the amount of text that you can put in. So just go through that and sort of specify it depending on where you're putting it to. Your featured section as well. This is specifically for LinkedIn. It should include a very, very, very low friction, singular, and I say singular, which is really important with emphasis, call to action to drive and convert viewers who visit your profile very quickly. Now, a good example of this is a single thing, a single step that essentially your whole profile is leading people to take action on. Mine is join the waitlist, and essentially people can get, I think it's 100 free video ideas when they sign up, so it's a nice little lead magnet there as well, which is great to tick that box. A bad example that I see very, very commonly, especially on LinkedIn, is like 5 or 10 different featured sections that you can skip through, and it's all very broad in terms of what do I do. There's a consultancy call link here, there's a free download here, there's a website link here, there's a testimonial here. It's way too much information, okay? I think once you have a sole purpose in terms of what your feature section is trying to achieve, for me, it's getting people on a waitlist. That's as simple as it needs to be. I really wouldn't overcomplicate it because it's going to confuse people. If it confuses you, the chances are it's going to confuse other people as well. So really simplify this, okay? And then you come down to any post that you create on LinkedIn or whatever platform you want to post onto, it needs to include a next step, okay? A lot of posts don't. I just say that, again, pinch yourself out of thin air a little bit there, but that could be a link to your website, that could be a downloadable lead magnet, it could be a free offer. As long as it sparks conversation and it encourages people to take action very clearly to that next step, that's a great thing, okay? I just see a lot of people really waste this opportunity when they get a lot of attention or they get the correct sort of engagement from their direct customer who could become a lead, etc., but they don't include a next step. And it's very much, leave your thoughts below, or what do you think? Comment below. It's so broad. It needs to be more candid. It needs to be more direct. It needs to be more specific. And that's really how you start to convert people, okay? It's not a numbers game. It's a specificity game. If you can talk to one person in their language and really spark that drive to take action, they will. You don't need 100,000 impressions. You need 10 people to like your content and 10% of them to convert, and you've got one new lead. Bang. It really is. It's a numbers game, okay? Then, this is a little bit of a kind of, I guess, a breakdown of how I've structured mine. So step one, which is I'm going to get my mouse up again. Step one is just the initial impression, who you are, what you do, who you help. Again, I help X achieve Y with Z. Nice little thing that you can still ignore this because this is just stats that I can get rid of. Then you have your sort of credibility space. So your bio, your description, who you are, your story, what you're about, how you help, those sorts of things. And then once people know you, they've got that impression, they then start to know a bit about you. That's really when you can start to convert them, okay? You've got to take them on that journey. It's like starting a relationship. You don't propose on the first date. You propose on the third. I mean, that's probably still a little bit quick if you're dating people, but you get the analogy that I'm going for there, okay? Treat it like a relationship. Don't propose and ask someone to marry on the first date. Take them on the journey. Go through a couple of dates first. Get to know them. Get them to know you, Have a bit of fun. I don't know. And then once you've got that relationship built, then you can convert them into a customer, okay? So that's your place for converting them. That's your link to your site or link to your waitlist or XYZ, okay? Same applies for things like a website. So it doesn't just have to be your LinkedIn profile or your Instagram account or your YouTube channel. This can also be how you format your website, okay? So again, stage one, impression. You guys can look at the Content Club website for a bit of experience, a bit of inspiration if you want. This is where you make your first impression. This is where people come to learn, create, and succeed together. The Club for Small Business Owners. Again, I know you probably won't be able to see this on the live because it might be a little bit laggy, but there you go. Then, once they've learned that, they've got that initial impression, then comes the information in terms of what I do, why I set it up, what it's all about, how it helps, etc. And then once they've gone through that journey, and they've got that information, they feel like they're ready to take that step, they're fueled with fire to take action, that's when you have a super clear, singular call to action to do something in terms of next step. For me, that's join the waitlist, okay? So impression, information, and action. The same can also be applied to pretty much anything else, okay? I'm going to use the example of newsletters now, just for those of you that also create newsletters. It could be podcast, it could be a written content, whatever it is, you can format this in the same way, okay? First email that goes out, I've changed these all today, so this is now outdated, but for example, the first email that you get sent when you join the club is everything that you need to know. So you get initial impression of what the club is about. Then you get the information around how much it costs to become a member, how doors open, how we bring on new members and everything in between. Okay, so you're getting a bit of clarity around the specificity of how things work. And then you dive into action. When people know what happens, they know what solution and what problem it's solving, then they can start to take action. This is how they take next steps, okay? Impressions, information, action. Your site works, for your landing pages works, for your profile pages work, for your content it works. Please try and format everything in this way, and it's going to really make things easier to convert people in the future. Hello, it's me again. If you're enjoying this workshop, glad that you are, but just remember to click those links down below if you want to get access to over 250 hours plus live weekly sessions that will help you to create better videos that market your business and generate your customers in 2026. Link will be in the description. See you there. Step 4. I'm going to blitz through the last bits because I'm very conscious of time as well, because we had a little bit of technical difficulties at the start today. Systemize your content. So once you've optimized everything, your profiles, your websites, your newsletters, etc., now it's about systemizing things, okay? Because if you don't systemize it, if you don't create a very habitual, rhythmic routine, it's going to be really hard to stick with this, okay? So I would recommend blocking time in your diary every week to cover a part of the creative process. That's going to remove a lot of reactivity. So in terms of thinking of an idea and just putting it out there into the world and hoping that it works, actually you're going to have a content bank, hopefully, touch wood, by the time that you get to that point. I would say, has anybody felt stressed with content creation before? But again, the chat's not working today, which is really frustrating. I'm going to say that you have, just for sort of giggles. Essentially, doing this is going to give you less stress, less pressure, and having less stress and less pressure is going to give you much more confidence and then clarity to be able to create content regularly using these systems, okay? Now, that's going to keep your messaging consistent. It's going to give you time to reflect and actually quality control what you're posting, plan ahead and those sorts of things, as opposed to picking an idea out of the wind, going, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Let's very quickly chop it up and script it and plan it and film it or design it or write it, whatever your format is, and post it and then go, it hasn't done well. If you can create a bank of content, and that comes through planning and being very rhythmic with how you structure your creative process, that's going to really help in the long run, okay? So what I would recommend is dedicate 30 minutes to an hour a day. For some of you, that might be too much time, and if that's the case, that's absolutely fine. But what I will say very strongly is if you can't dedicate 30 minutes a day to it, the chances are you're not going to do well with content. That's just the reality of it, okay? It takes time, especially if you want to do really well. Dedicating 30 minutes a day to building your business, it's not going to grow your business, okay? If you really want to do well with your content, you've got to treat it as a priority. So I'd recommend minimum 30 minutes a day, thinking of ideas, planning ideas out, creating, designing, filming, whatever it is, and actually then scheduling and organizing content in terms of a big bank of content and scheduling it all out on socials and those sorts of things. Again, you've got whatever works for you. You've got to find your rhythm. But if you can't commit to 30 minutes a day, you're going to struggle, all right? So what I would genuinely recommend is as much time as you can, okay? This is really, in terms of content creation nowadays, this is the new way for business development. The days of cold calling and cold outreach and those sorts of things, while they do work for some businesses, I think when you're smaller, people buy from people that they like and trust and would love to work with, and that comes from building reputation and authority. And I think it's really important to dedicate time to building that, and that just takes time. Like anything that's great in life, if you work on it, if you stick with it, test and fail mindset, you will have a fruitful reward from that, okay? You've just got to commit to it, okay? Now, what I would say is, everything I've kind of just said is probably a little bit overwhelming. I did say it was going to be a heavy one today. Really important is to manage all of this. Now, this looks a little bit crazy. This is essentially my Notion workflow. I did use Monday.com. I just found it too expensive, and I can actually just use Notion for free. I do not pay for this platform. You do not have to pay for this platform unless you start to add more people in and you've got a bigger team, but I don't think it's too expensive, which is great. But actually managing that in terms of your content pillars, which I've got, let me grab my mouse. Content pillars are up here that always remind me, my educational, my entertainment pillars, my information pillars. Then I've got a list of ideas in terms of my know, like, and trust content that sort of fit, that I filter through every now and then. Again, if you haven't watched that masterclass, I'll leave the link below. And then essentially what I'm working on my schedule. You can't see the dates here, but it goes from January all the way down to end of March, essentially. What category these are all in terms of what pillars they focus on, when they're being posted. If you can format this, and it feels really overwhelming. I'm sure if you've never done this before, I totally relate to how you feel. It is quite daunting, but spending a day or a weekend just building this approach is going to really streamline your content creation in the future. And once you've done that, it's kind of a build one and done situation. You don't have to keep tweaking it. You've just got to 1% make it better every time that you come onto it. You'll find little holes and little gaps that you can fill. That's the beauty of it. It's a one and done thing. You just constantly refine it and finesse it over time depending on what works. But that initial input in terms of time to build something like this, it'll probably take you half a day to be able to put some real thought into it. It does take time, all right? But if you dedicate time to it, you will win. It's as easy as that, okay? Now, if you don't do this, you will become stressed. It's just as easy as that. It's going to be a super stressful thing. You're not going to have a system. You're not going to have a workflow. You've got this 4C formula that you want to use. You've got this, the impression, all the other bits I kind of went through. I can't even remember what I went through. We've gone through so much, Jesus. But you're going to be stressed, and that's going to kill your momentum. Then you're going to throw in the towel, and you're going to go, content doesn't work. But it's not that the content doesn't work. It's that you haven't committed to the process of creating content on a regular basis to make it work. As simple as that, okay? I'm going to be super blunt today because I'm so passionate about this for you. I want you to do well, and I really want you to win. But it really is half a mindset game. If you're not in the right mindset, if you're just going to give it a go for a month and go, oh, it hasn't worked, I haven't gone viral, you're going to really struggle, okay? I've been doing it for years, okay? It takes time. And everything that I'm trying to teach you now is things that I have done, I've implemented myself, I've tried and tested it out. I've worked with over 300 different businesses in this sort of capacity. I know that it works. I really want you to learn it and steal it from me and impact it for yourself, okay? Last step, because I know I'm very conscious of time, I'm going over a little bit. If you've done everything that I've just covered, the 4C formula, the different frameworks, the different systems, setting things out in Notion, managing a workflow, treating it like a conveyor belt, optimizing everything, and you're not then putting your content that you've worked hard on under a microscope, and you're looking at it and you're measuring it and you're analyzing it in terms of what's working and what's not working, it's a huge waste of your energy, time, money, resources, and everything in between, okay? You need to be analyzing what is working and what is not working. Here's how you do that, okay? So just a caveat, again, some posts will flop and some posts will skyrocket. That is the nature of the beast in terms of content, okay? I would say personally, for me, I've got a fairly nice, substantial size network on LinkedIn, and I'm getting up there with YouTube and on TikTok and those sorts of things. I'd say maybe 1 out of every 5 posts does well. The other 4, because they tend to be a bit more promotional or a bit more educational, not so much fun and shareable, which is always the way, they will flop in comparison. So do not compare. It's a very different approach. But you need to ask questions like, what hooks are getting you the most engagement? When are you personally most productive and creative? That's going to allow you to streamline your workflow and actually start to build systems. What topics actually resonate with your audience the most? And again, you can know that through just trial and error and that test and fail mindset. What specific calls to action are actually driving the most amount of action to your site? Again, you can track that through things like Google Analytics or Google Forms or whatever you want to use. What lead magnets gain the most signups? Which videos reach the highest amount of views? Again, these are just kind of pick out of the luck questions. But what I'm trying to reinforce here, guys, is that you need to double down on what works and you need to scrap the stuff that isn't as fast as possible. And the only way that you know that is by really analyzing it. This is where content becomes 50% science and 50% creative, okay? Yes, you can produce some nice, pretty, sexy-looking videos or write a beautifully crafted newsletter, whatever it is. But if you're not commercially aware in terms of how to structure things and how to analyze things and check that things are working, it's going to be a lot of wasted energy, and you're going to be going around in circles for a long time before you can kind of tap onto what's not and what is working, okay? So please, at every stage, please just check. That's what I'd say, okay? I spoke to somebody the other day, and I said something along the lines of, how's your content doing? And they literally said to me, I think it's doing okay. You need to know if it's doing okay. What are you reaching? How many leads are you getting through a month? How many people are clicking onto your website? This is really valuable information. Treat it like any other aspect of your business. Any part of your product or service you would be tracking to an absolute finite degree. please do the same with your content because it's going to be really fruitful if you do, okay? Now, high converting content is a process of refinement, not perfection, okay? Some posts will flop, like I said, others will skyrocket. It really is a matter of that test and fail mindset, a process of elimination. And essentially what I would say is, biggest piece of advice really is go into it knowing that a lot of what you create for the next, I would genuinely say, 2 to 3 months, if you're posting, let's say once a week, probably won't work. This is your trial period. This is your teething stage. This is your chance and opportunity to test things out and throw things at a wall and see what sticks and see what works and see what resonates, okay? But you don't know that unless you actively do it, okay? Throwing one piece of content at the wall and going, oh, it hasn't worked, I'm going to give up. The opportunity cost in terms of the potential that you could be reaching with the data that you could be getting from the amount of content that you could be posting is astronomical, okay? So please stick with it. Please give it a go. If it does flop, look at it analytically and go, why did it flop? Is it because of the time of day? Is it because of the type of content? Is it because of this, that, and the other, X, Y, Z? Again, it's a process of refinement, not perfection, okay? So that's I can't remember what I called it, the conversion something system. I don't even know my own masterclass, Christ. But that's going to cover the messaging, so formatting your messaging, structuring your content, optimizing your landing pages and your websites and all your formats of different content, creating a system where you can actually actively manage that so it doesn't become stressful and you can actually start to bank content, which is really great for confidence. And then finally, analyzing the whole thing on a regular basis. Now, I wouldn't be doing that every day. Maybe at the end of a month might be a nice way to do it, just so you're not constantly looking at the specific numbers. That can really get you in analysis paralysis mode where you just get stuck refining things and you're looking at the micro as opposed to the macro grand scheme of things. Once a month is quite nice because you get a big, larger, broad coverage of what you've been doing. You can kind of generally say this has worked for that. Okay, now next steps, okay, would be over the next. I'm gonna say month. Sorry, let me have a quick sip of water because I know I've been talking for a little while. Over the next month, what I would love you to do, and the reason this is a month is because it's going to take time. Okay, this is not an overnight thing. This is not going to happen by tomorrow. So please don't go into this system and this masterclass thinking, right, I'm going to implement everything tomorrow, and in a week's time I'm going to be an absolute viral sensation. It's not going to happen. All right, give it a month. 4 weeks, I want you to define 3 to 5 different pillars. If you're just starting out, I would say do 2 to 3. Okay, that could be personal, educational, business, whatever you fancy doing. So define those and start to think of some ideas that you could sort of situate within those categories. The second is I'd like you to create 4 posts using this 4C formula. Again, for some of you that joined later into the masterclass, just go back into the recordings and rewinds and watch that. It's all there for you. I'll break it down below as well. That's going to really allow you to structure content that could increase the chances that people convert as you take them on that much more structured journey from clarity and XYZ. Third is to start optimizing your profiles. Again, this isn't an overnight thing. It's going to take a bit of time and it's going to be a pretty much process of refinement, but get your branding sorted out, get a really professional headshot done, get a really smooth, seamless bio integrated into your profiles, get a nice biography in terms of story and why you started your business and what problems it solves and who it's helped and all that sort of stuff in there as well, because that's really important. Simplify your feature section on LinkedIn is a big one just for LinkedIn specifically. Then what I want you to do, once you've done that and once you've got your pillars and once you've tested out the 4C formula, is just create a bit of a repeatable content workflow. This is going to take you time to do. I know I said this a lot, but I just really want to home in that message. It's going to take time, okay? It's not going to happen overnight. My process personally has taken me probably the best part of 5 years to build. That's a lot of that is not even thinking about the system, probably only over the last year or so. I'll say the last year. Last 12 months, it's where I've sort of spent time refining that workflow and that system. And I've got a lot of experience in this space. So if it's taken me a year, it's going to take you a lot longer to do that. But just start that journey and start getting things written down just so you can track stuff. And then finally, start to measure and implement based on data, okay? What I mean by that is measure what works, measure what doesn't work, start to do more of the stuff that does work really well so you're getting more bang for your buck in terms of time, and bin the stuff that isn't working. Even if you're emotionally attached to it and you like it personally, it's irrelevant. If it's not working, kill it off, move on, save your time, save your money, save your energy, and invest it into stuff that actually works. Now, what I'm going to very quickly cover as the last 2 slides for this masterclass, guys, I appreciate you all being here. I know I've gone for 70 minutes now, so it's been a long one. I did say it was going to be a bit of a deep dive. This is a 5-step checklist for when you start to create content on the internet and you're thinking, right, is this going to does this do everything that gives me the highest chance to convert someone? Here's a couple of things that I want you to ask. First is, does it hook people in the first 3 seconds? Does your content immediately grab attention? Does it have a strong opening line? Does it have some sort of movement or visual interest to stop that scroll? It's going to be a little bit harder with newsletters and written stuff, but for video, that's really important. Is it clear and compelling in terms of message? This might be something you have to run past other people that aren't emotionally attached to the content that you have created, just to get a different perspective, because sometimes you can get tunnel vision on that sort of stuff. So is your messaging concise and is it easy to understand? No fluff in this as well, so every second really counts to get to the value as fast as possible, and every word that you use, every part of your script, every section of your newsletter should serve a very specific purpose. Again, integrate the 4C formula there for a bit of clarity. Third is engagement factor. So does your content actually encourage interaction? Does it spark likes? Does it spark comments? Does it spark shares? That's still important because you need engagement on social to then have your content seen by more people. Does it include a very clear call to action as well to actually prompt action in terms of the next step? And then the last two are visually appealing and professional. So does your content look polished, even if it's on a budget, even if it's shot on a phone? Has it been shot in 4K? Is it composed nicely? Does it have nice lighting? Is the audio okay? Because if it's not, it's going to be really hard to compete. The competition is getting much more saturated now, so it's getting harder to stand out. There's lots of assets in the club. I'll try and find some of the links on below, but if not, just search for how to make videos in the club and it will pop up. Good lighting, clear audio, well-paced editing as well. And then lastly, is it aligned with your audience and your sort of wider business goals? Does the content actually speak to your audience's pain points? Because if not, what's the point? And secondly, is it leading towards a broader strategy? So actually, does your content that you're posting not just be a random idea that you thought of that you think, oh, this could be a really great piece of content, I'm going to make it now? Does it actually fit into your pillars? Does it fit into your system? Does it fit into your strategy? Does it actually help to achieve what you're trying to achieve? Because if it doesn't, I see that as wasted time that you could be putting into something that's much more meaningful. Okay. So that was one of the over 250 hours of already pre-recorded training and workshops and masterclasses and courses that I've got hosted inside the Content Club. If you want to find out a bit more about it, again, first line of the description, the link will be right there. In terms of what to do next, if you want to still stay on the train and get on the bandwagon of creating your own videos, click this link right here. Check out this video. It will help you to create better videos to market your business and get customers without spending the next hour watching a workshop. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. See you there.